It's true. Managed services oftentimes will lock you into a piece. Now, the key there is how you use those services is what locks you in, not the service itself locking you in. There's got to be aspect that like when we think about things, we think of like, hey, how can we remove it? But that's not just about managed services. That's about like any critical component that might evolve and have something that comes along that's better. So if you're like, hey, we're going to depend a lot of this stuff on especially critical components, when you think like, oh my gosh, we're going to depend on this, like a lot of folks might put their center backbone around Kafka for a lot of like the streaming messaging or event bus or whatever it is that you might have like one core component on it. Sometimes once you get to a certain scale, you just have limited options on what you can choose. But on most things, I would say that how you interface with those components is what defines how locked in you are. So if you're viewing it that way on managed services and you're not thinking about that, you're going to be locked in. That being said, if you don't use managed service and you manage it yourself, you're still going to be locked in equally. And you're probably not going to be able to move to another cloud provider any more easily anyway. So it's a little bit of a false herring of saying like, oh yeah, sweet. Like we're going to not use any managed services from the cloud vendor while you're building everything else in a way where you're totally stuck to the cloud vendor anyways. That being said, I would advise like, again, kind of being like a muscle that you exercise is you don't need to make everything replaceable. But if you instill principle of saying, hey, we're going to start thinking about how do we replace components? How do we allow ourselves to make flexible systems in the future where what would happen? Like, how would we go about removing this, putting something else into place? How hard would it be? How much effort would it be? And does it matter? Like, would it actually have a business impact? Again, we're doing all these things to solve business problems. So it's either to have future flexibility or future options that we're making all these choices.